Katie, how are you?
Hi, I'm
Welcome
good.
to the mixer.
Yeah, thanks. Greetings from Los Angeles.
Los Angeles. Well, at least it's daytime there. It's the middle of the night here now.
Yep, it's a sunny day as it always is in LA. So
Yeah, okay, don't rub it in. Don't rub it in. So you are going to tell us about the new normal.
yeah, it's something that I've been kind of doing a lot of. People are asking me about it a lot, and it's what everyone's talking about. Even you guys have just been talking about it for the last half an hour as well. But it's funny because 2 years ago at NAB, I did a talk about the future of post-production for colorists. And one of the big themes was I was saying, like, we're all going to be able to work remotely. That's going to be a thing. And it was considered really radical. A lot of people were telling me that's impossible. It's never going to happen. And particularly because, especially with DI, a lot of the clients just didn't think that that was possible. And so it's really funny that, this is where we are now. We certainly had to innovate pretty fast. If you weren't already thinking about that stuff, if you weren't already doing it, and in particular, of course, there were a lot of freelancers who were already on the ball with that. But the big facilities, were definitely really betting on the fact that all the investment they put into infrastructure was something that they were going to be able to keep.
And how much of this do you think happened naturally, and how much do you think it was kind of people were forced to rethink their attitudes because of the COVID lockdowns?
The naysayers were forced to rethink their attitudes. I think there were a lot of people in this business who were already on board this the idea of this distributed environment. The thing is that in post we're always really behind the A game. Like, we're super behind the ball when it comes to innovation, and the rest of the industry were already there. To a large extent, if not there, definitely developing pretty hard out. And in post, we've always been behind, always. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that a lot of the gatekeepers invest a lot of money and time and energy into real estate and, heavy iron equipment, and they want to keep it that way. But it's definitely something that, that we've had to, we've really seen this shift, and we've really forced people into at least trying it out, which has been, and so it's interesting. I think at the start of the pandemic, people were a little bit ahead if they were already doing that stuff, already had the capabilities, just had to kind of scale it up, right? So definitely freelancers were like doing great for a while there as well in that sense, because they were already able to keep working and didn't have to disrupt. Some of the most disrupted clients were clients of the big guys like Technicolor, who weren't really prepared for that. So that was certainly something that we saw. And now, of course, there's a lot of products have been developed and people have, implemented them. And, now, of course, we're sitting at this point where, okay, everyone's decided that, yes, it's possible to work remotely. And the benefits of that, have been awesome for a lot of people, especially for the freelancers who are really struggling to convince the clients that it's totally okay to work with somebody who's not in LA or New York. But now what's happening is really interesting. We're really seeing, a return to a hybrid model. A lot of the clients still want to come back into the facility for some of the work, often for a final review. And that's what we're really seeing in terms of a trend. Not everybody had a great time working remotely, both the clients and the talent. And again, we've got to remember that we're not just talking about colorists here, but most colorists don't work in a vacuum. Most colorists, because yes, freelancers can, but most colorists work with a team. And so not everybody is having a great time, and not everybody's, some people are struggling with the collaboration side of things. And some of the talent are really not enjoying it, especially those who are, don't have great internet or, that sort of thing. So, and we've also found that for some of my staff, I've got extroverts and I've got introverts. My extroverts are really struggling. They hate being alone all the time. They hate not being around people and physically connecting with people. So, it's definitely been I think we're really moving back towards a hybrid model of working, and we've had to solve for a lot of different things. We've certainly had to solve for the client experience. We are in the customer service business after all. So the client experience is something we've really had to work on. We've also had to really work on content security, because, again, if you're a freelancer and you can just get some drives, work from home, be your own little, hub, that's cool. But, certainly we're finding that, especially on the bigger scale projects, content security is everything. You can't just ship a drive to someone's house. And you also have to work on, in terms of what kind of platforms for review. Most of the review and approval platforms that we have are gaping holes of lack of content security. And very few of them actually do have content security that's strong enough. So, it's definitely something in terms of moving to the cloud, which many of us have been doing, that we really have to solve for content security pretty hard. And that's definitely, I think, the last step towards completing this side of the innovation, of actually moving to this sort of hybrid, remote, distributed environment of post-production, is going to be solving for content security.
Katie, it's Wazza here. How are you?
Yeah.
For those people who have not read your bio, can you just give them a little update on your background and where you're actually working now? Because some people might not have gone into that and want to know what you're doing. Thanks.
Oh my God. So right now, I'm working at a company called Nice Shoes. Nice Shoes is headquartered in New York, but is all over North America. I, for a living, design and build and startup high-end post facilities. That's kind of a thing that I do. I come from 20 years in the chair, and then I started doing that. So I do have a very different approach to how I, kind of start up these facilities. But yeah, Nice Shoes has me doing it for 3 facilities initially across North America for high-end DI and dailies. But I do come from, Darren was saying, would you say frame IO is secure? Now, frame IO is the worst. Sorry, for content security. But yeah, so so I come from 20 years in the chair. I did a lot of things, but always in my career, I was looking at emerging technologies. I started quite young. I started right out of high school. And so I was always the kid. And so whenever there was some emerging technology coming in that the facility or the company had to figure out whether it was going to be used, they'd throw it to the kid to figure it out. And it's, it was always me. So figuring out how to implement things and into our workflows. And one of the big ones I did was RED. Again, people are talking about Frame.io in the chat. Frame.io is not secure at all. Even with what they say that there's new things in there, you can actually go into, on the website, you can go into the page. You can actually kind of right click, go into the page and download anything, even if it's not downloadable. So that's why the big studios don't use Frame.io. But if you aren't concerned about that Marvel level security, Frame.io is a really user-friendly platform. People are talking about that because I've mentioned that, so that's just the quick answer there. It's a great option for the right implementation, and there are tons of clients that love it because it's super client friendly. But if you're asking whether it's secure, it's not. Anyway, so that's me. Big nerd here, and I kind of took that nerdy and talent side of things into basically I wanted to start building facilities the way that I thought they should be run. I spent so much time in the chair working for post facilities and going, man, I could do such a better job than these idiots over here. But I think a lot of the facilities that we work for are run by people who are business forward, and very few facilities are run by colorists or former colorists. So that's something I do that's quite different. And every time I build one, it's so fun to build one and walk away, because then you get to do it again and the technology's moved it forward a little bit. So that's what I do kind of in a nutshell. But because I've always been looking, I'm not really that interested in what's next. In terms of technology, I'm always interested in what's after what's next, because we tend to know what's next, right? It's like, it's kind of obvious. And so for me, I'm all about, I'm all about what's after the thing that's next. And so that's why people tend to ask me a lot of questions about that sort of stuff, because like, if you're going to implement something out, then you want to know that it's going to be sustainable and still be relevant in 10 years time. So that's a bit about me, but basically what we've really seen in terms of changes in the last year, obviously remote, and it's pretty obvious to everybody. Then we want to talk about things like virtual machines and cloud. Cloud and AI has been a big thing, right? And everyone complains about, they're scared about cloud and AI, but frankly, you've all been using it for a long time and not even known about it. But definitely we've been moving our pipelines a little bit more into the cloud and seeing some really interesting things coming out of it, out the other side. Virtual machines are really dope. I heard that in the last half an hour as well about using virtual machines. But definitely, a lot of the pipelines, the project that I'm doing at Nice Shoes at the moment has been all about, integrating dailies, visual effects, and DI into a single pipeline, which I think, which we've had to, it's actually really smart, because color management across that whole ecosystem has been one of the biggest problems that we haven't yet solved. And a lot of it's just because stuff goes out to different vendors. And so if you can get a really nice, smooth pipeline from one end to the other, then that's a really easy solve. Some of the easiest solves in technology are the lowest hanging fruits. They're just the least sexy things. Everyone wants to solve the exciting stuff, but nobody's actually going to just go and do a FileMaker fix, So the other thing that I've seen that's been really cool is actually now the fact that we can utilize people who aren't in the same area as our clients. Like, it was always like you had to pick your favorite colorist in LA if you're in LA. Now you can pick your favorite colorist no matter where they are, which is awesome. And now that that's a thing, and it's not 100% going to be a thing, because like I said, there's always going to be, clients that want to be in the room. And of course you can kind of be in the room with clear view and things like that, but eventually not everyone's going to love that. That said, what I'm seeing a lot is, and what I'm starting to do as well with my staff, is repping colorists, and that's a new thing. Editors have been repped for a while, but repping colorists is new, and so I've started doing that, putting some colorists on my roster that are that we're representing. So essentially, whenever it works out really well for both sides, it's whenever because a lot of the freelance one-man band or one-woman band colorists, mostly men, they have a little bit of a downside to that environment, because oftentimes for a bigger project you really need the full force of a post house behind you, and especially when it comes to some of the other things like deliverables and integrations and online and producers and all the other things that the clients want. So if you're repped by a post house, then when it comes to actually getting yourself a nice big show, you can say, no, I've got a post house. I'm not just the dude in my basement. But you can still be a dude in your basement. You just also a dude in your basement that works for a post house. So there's a benefit there. And then there's a benefit for the post houses, because we want to have as big a roster of as diverse a range of colorists as possible. Because if the client is going to choose a vendor based on the talent, and I have 3 white dudes that are all look the same, then if you don't want to work with a white dude, you're not going to come to my vendor. If you've got 3 people that have, as everybody does, a limited reel, everybody's reel is limited, 3 colorists is cool, but they might not have what you want. If I have 15 colorists to choose from, I'm most likely going to have something that everybody wants. And so that's been a really cool thing for us, just starting to move into that idea of repping colorists. And we're able to rep colorists from all over the world as well, in the same way as we do with editors, because we can actually do that now. So, it's always a case of, can you say yes to every client? And yes, we can. Do you have some clients are really, really specific? They're saying, look, this is our content, this is what we need. Do you have someone who's done this stuff and who's this kind of person? And you're like, yeah, of course we do. Here you go. So that's been a trend that's starting to happen as well this year. So yeah, I think we're definitely going to see this whole thing continue to an extent. Execs love the fact that they can stick their noses into sessions when they couldn't before. So we're going to end up with having this, even if you're in the room, you're still going to have to remote out somehow to everyone else, because we're seeing the execs going, oh, I really like that thing where I can look on my iPad at what's happening. So unfortunately, that's still going to keep going on. But it's cool where we've got this hybrid kind of thing coming on, this flexibility. It's allowing a much wider range of people to participate in the creative process. And that's exciting for us all. It means that the creatives also don't have to the creatives don't have to be restricted to working with people that are in the same location as them, which is dope. But we're also going to have to look at some of the problems that we're still solving. So yeah, we're still solving, obviously, we're solving collaboration really, really well. Like, not just collaboration with the client and the colorist, but collaboration with the whole team. How are you collaborating with your online editor? How are you collaborating with visual effects? How are you collaborating with the editors? How are you collaborating with deliverables? That's a big part of something that we're still working on solving for some people. How are we training the next generation? Again, if we're not all in the room, and that's a big problem we have in the world of colorists, is the pipeline problem, as they call it. Lots of people want to be colorists, not too many people get to the top, and really we have to keep working with people and bringing them up the chain. And if they're not in the facility with us, that's a wee bit harder. And of course, content security is a big one that we're still working on solving. There's some really cool ideas floating around out there, and so I don't think that one's going to take very long to solve, to be honest. It's just that technology is just kind of getting there. Obviously, we're solving with making sure that our client monitors are, thanks Joey, our client monitors are the same as what we're seeing. But again, that's an easy solve that's being worked on at the moment. There's some ideas that are being developed and patented and stuff at the moment. That essentially does, it sort of probes the monitor that's there and sees what its settings are. And you can actually it's essentially the same idea as you have with Dolby Vision. You can kind of see what monitor they're looking on and give them something that they need. Right now, we hack that together by essentially saying, here are your monitor options, and it's usually going to be an iPad, to be honest, or a laptop, and LUTing it to the right sort of thing. So there's a few things that are being solved for in that way. But yeah, that's kind of where we're going, to be honest. I don't know if anyone's got any questions for me, because I just kind of brain dumped a bunch of stuff, but I'm the kind of person that can talk for like hours on this. So.
That's all good and fascinating, Katie. I think the big question on the chat is, can you provide your contact info? How do people get in touch with you?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'll do that. But yeah, there's a ton of there's a ton of really interesting stuff happening in terms of like behind the scenes that's being developed. And as much as you want to as much as sometimes it feels like we've just done this massive innovation and then we're just going to sit back for a while, honestly, it's super exciting what's still coming along the lines. I think we've really put the boot up the arse of a lot of our vendors. Seriously, with this whole thing, there's a ton of vendors that have been sitting back for a while. And, we've definitely put the boot up the arse of them, saying, right, here's actually what we need. Here's what we want to do. Here's what we're pushing things. And we've actually, a lot of us have hacked together solutions that have leapfrogged the vendors.
And I think that's really important, isn't it? That we are driving development rather than sort of sitting and waiting for it to happen.
Exactly. And that's been a big part of it, yeah.
And can you tell us a little bit more about repping? What should colorists, or not just colorists, what should freelancers look for if they want to be repped?
It's still very new. It's a very new idea. Like I said, I know Nice Shoes is doing it. It's a pretty, it will depend on depends on your company, but really what you're looking for is something that works for both sides really well. You are going to have a way of getting paid that's a lower rate than your freelance rate, but you get the advantages of like a whole sales and marketing team, for example, right? Producers and support teams and all that sort of stuff.
And presumably debt collection as well, like the accounting is done by the...
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So
Well,
you don't
that's
have
a
to
big
worry
thing.
about the hustle. So essentially we get a colorist at a much lower rate, and you as a colorist don't have to hustle. So we're always looking for colorists with reels or even backgrounds and stuff that we don't already have on the roster. It's quite, it's an interesting time for that. It's really interesting, like, because anyone from anywhere really now has, with a good internet connection, can actually, access our, can work on a machine that's in our facility.
And do you specify like a minimum, presumably they provide their own kit, so do you specify a minimum standard of equipment?
They don't provide their own kit, they just have their own peripherals and monitor. So you basically would log into a machine that we have in our facility. You just need to have a good monitor and your panels and everything. So we actually have it's plugged in, I can't show you, but basically we'll give you an amulet box that you just plug your peripherals into, and that logs you into, then we assign you a machine as if you were working in the facility. That's how we're doing it now. And we're saying that someone was doing it with flame artists a while ago. Yeah, I mean, it's not new. It's kind of new to colorists. That's the difference. So that's the thing. I think a lot of the time we look at these things and think they're brand new, but they're not. It's just that we never look outside our own bubbles. And there's a lot of that, especially in post.
Yeah, no, post-production is very conservative. And it sometimes takes a catalyst to make it happen.
Right, and we've had a catalyst this year. And of course, the next logical step to that, if you ever want to put your money somewhere, that I reckon I would bet on, is that we're going to see a WeWork style for post houses. We're going to have 4-wall facilities, and if you want to go in and do a screening or a session where you have to have a DI theatre, a lot of post facilities this year have downsized, with more people working from home. And I think there's a real trend towards that. I had a facility in New Zealand for a while, and we actually did that. We actually 4-walled our DI theatres and rooms, HDR rooms and whatever else, to anyone that wanted to rent them at a really good rate. Because, if we're not using it, it's just going to waste anyway. But it was really great for freelancers who didn't have to have a theatre in their house, but they could still bid on a big feature, just like anyone else. And again, things that enable freelancers and to be able to work like they're at a post house is awesome. I think that's a big win-win for everybody.
Well, and this came up a lot in HDR, because we were talking about affordable HDR monitors, which of course are not totally recognized by Dolby and Netflix and so on. But this ability to work from home and then go to a place just for the run through, and then you can get the clients in the room. It's so affordable.
And well, we are seeing some of those studios actually building rooms out for that reason as well.
Yeah.
So I mean, most of the studios now have rooms that they've built out for that. If that's well,
and a lot of the bigger facilities got terribly burned by investing on a 5-year plan and then finding it was all junk before they paid for it.
Yeah.
So I think it makes perfect business sense to do it that way. I can't think of any reason not to do it that way, actually.
Well, that's the thing. There's really nothing to lose. Even if I'm repping someone and they never work with me, that's cool. But it's a win-win if and when we need each other. And that's the thing. So, and you get to be promoted, and you may not ever turn out. You may just keep always working the way you're working. But, it's...
It's great information, Katie. Thanks for coming along and taking the time.
Oh, the whereabouts are you? That's a tremendous roof you got there.
It's my living room.
Excellent. All right. So tell us some things about Kingston.
Well, let's see. I worked at Autodesk years ago, doing visual effects stuff, and then ended up doing hardware, going to Fusion IO because they had really fast solutions there, and off-the-shelf NVMe drives are like 3 times faster than any of that stuff. But that was back when you could get like $1,000 a gigabyte for flash drives over 10 years ago. And then working at Kingston, I went there, and it's a pretty interesting company. It's privately held by 2 guys based in Orange County. And then I think in 2018, they did well over $12 billion revenue. So they're actually one of the bigger companies when it comes to playing in the field of flash memory and computer memory. And they actually make a lot of the memory that's in components that are in vacuum cleaners and tablets and laptops and desktops and workstations. So they make DRAM and SSDs mostly. And then they had a really successful gaming brand called HyperX that the company just sold to HP. So all of those former Kingston HyperX employees are now going to be employees of HP starting in a couple months. And then our door prize today, we're giving away 4 of our DC1000M, which is a nice 4 terabyte. It's 3.84 terabytes of storage on a U.2 form factor. So that's looks like a 2.5-inch SATA drive, but it's about 15 millimeters thick. And you can, if you have a free PCIe slot, you can throw these into almost any machine that has an open PCIe slot. If you want to use it on a Mac Pro, like an older trash can or something, you can actually put it into a Thunderbolt chassis. Don't want to. I'm not sure where we're at, on the agenda, but I know I had 5 minutes. I don't want to waste everybody's time with a bunch of bunk about us. We just were excited to support the Colorist Mixer and hope for getting back to IBC and NAB sometime soon.
Yeah, no, thanks, Mark. That's a great update, mate. There's a lot of dollars there. Maybe we should have asked for more money. Great, thanks for joining. So join in Slido, folks. You can use the QR code. It works really well. Hashtag Colorist Mixer to win these 2 prizes, 2 SSDs, 4 terabytes from Kingston. And following that, we'll have Dario, CJ, and Mark Todd Osborne talking about how long to grade movies and how we should be pitching. There we go. So that's coming up after this. And then after that, we'll be into the big FSI quiz, which I'm going to give you a clue. It may be a tad harder than the last one. So if that was a bit too easy for you, this one may be a little bit harder. Mr. Greenberg did road test the quiz, and then he said it was a touch harder.
There's actually
Don't make it interesting. Don't make it interesting.
Yeah, there's 4.
There's
4 drives. 4 prizes.
Oh, 4.
terabyte.
Excellent. Excellent. It's getting better. It's the prize that keeps on giving.
And while these are worth a lot of money, even more importantly, they're like gold dust right now getting hold of them. So if you've been trying to get hold of some storage for yourselves, you know how hard it is in the market at the moment.
And I will say, I just put a couple into my PC, and these things fly. If you want to do large file playback, this is what you need. Cool.
And the voice in the background was our famous producer, Gigi, who was putting this together for us. So big hand for Gigi. Thank you very much. Yeah, big hands. Great work. Great work. All right, we must be nearly there. What do you think, Kevin?
I think we have to go for it.
I think we do. I think we do. Am I entered?
So when was Kingston Technology founded? Was it 21 years ago, 34 years ago, 50 years ago? So that would have put it in the 70s, the 90s, or
Right.
the
It,
noughties.
it's scary when you say like 21 years ago was
I know.
in the
There's
noughties.
people probably in the audience that are not that old.
I know. There you
Some
go.
smart people out there trying to figure out the math.
61%
I think
smart
we gave
people.
them time to check it out. Yeah.
I think we maybe did. Yeah. Those people that be Googling, they won't be
Okay.
happy
Well,
with them.
well, I don't know though. 3 seconds.
Mate,
I don't think you're
if they
looking it up in
look,
3
and
seconds.
Greenberg's already done it once and he only came fourth. Like those people that
I did not do
Googling,
this one.
mate,
I did
you
not do this
Googlers-
one.
You
How
Googlers
many
will
units
never-
per day does Kingston ship? 10,000.
I did not do this one, Waz.
100,000.
I
Mate,
want a shot, even if I have to give it up.
Yeah. No, mate. The Google people, you'll never be able to sleep tonight. You're using Google, you won't be able to rest. That's all I can say.
How many units do they ship?
Oh,
Oh, it's good.
Over a million
A
a day.
million a day.
We have
Day.
lot of
one.
units.
We have one model of SSD. It's our A500. We sell over 3 million of those a month on Amazon.
Mark, I've got a question. Was it the Kingston ship that got stuck in the Suez Canal?
No, but I heard there were some GPUs on there.
I'm sure there was a lot of things on there. All right. Who won?
Who won?
Oh,
So top 4, Augusto, Mark, Myron, and Shane.
oh, great. Unlucky, Jeff.
Very close, Jeff. Just not
Yeah,
quick
you
enough.
were. Go for the next one, mate.
Getting old and slow, mate.
What do you mean getting? I was old and slow at 21.